Now on Talking Solutions, we are entering Emergency Preparedness Month. Welcome into our studio. John Steinbeck, you are the Deputy Fire Chief, Emergency Manager for Clark County.
Yes, I am, Terry.
And Rachel Skidmore, you are with, is it the Emergency Preparedness Office?
I am actually the Emergency Manager out of the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center.
Just the people we need to talk to as we start off Emergency Preparedness Month. This is something that we've actually observed on the show with our friends from the Red Cross during the month of September, making sure that people have smoke alarms in their homes. And if they don't have them, they'll get them for them. And if they need them installed, they'll do that too. I know that our friends from the Red Cross have got way too much on their plates right now. Everybody is talking about Harvey, the hurricane, the tropical storm, the impact down in the southern area of Texas and into Louisiana. Should I call you Deputy Chief Steinbeck?
Well, I was named John. John is always fine. Okay, so you can always call me John. You can call me Chief Steinbeck, whatever's most comfortable.
Well, John, I saw you on television just this past weekend. The story about the emergency response team, which headed out of here to go down to help the victims of Harvey and the flooding days ago.
Yes, I'm the chief that's in charge of Nevada Task Force 1. It's one of 28 task force throughout the nation, and we're designed specifically for large-scale disasters, just like what's occurring down in Texas right now. My guys on the task force have just been chomping at the bit to go down there and help, and all we do is wait for that call. Once that call came in, they were right out the door.
I saw this big semi-truck on the news story, and I went, wow, Task Force 1 has their own semi-truck?
Oh, we have several semi-trucks. That's one that was specific for hazardous materials, and that was a request because there's a lot of decon issues with that much flooding in that area, much like what we faced in Katrina. We learned quite a bit from that, so they put in 7 different locations throughout the nation special hazardous materials equipment, and we're fortunate to have one of those right here in Clark County. They called us to send that down there.
I saw it on TV and I was so impressed. And then I found out I had you coming in for the interview. I'm like, wow, it's John Steinbeck, the chief on TV the other day. So I knew you were well aware of what's going on with Harvey and our Nevada help that's been sent for that purpose.
Absolutely. I've been with the task force around 24 years now. And like I said, we've had the opportunity to respond to many emergencies, many of the hurricanes. Katrina was the biggest one, but many of them that have come across the Gulf, flooding in Colorado. Recently, we also went up and responded to the flooding that was up in northern Nevada. And we respond locally, too, in much smaller groups. But our hearts go out to the people in Texas, and we just want to be able to go down there and help them as best we can.
There is so much need, and you're right, our hearts do go out. To make a $10 donation to the Harvey storm efforts down in South Texas and Louisiana, text Harvey to 90999. That will bill your cell phone carrier $10. You'll see it on there as redcross.org. Information for all of us to be able to do what we can to help the victims of Harvey will be included on the Talking Solutions Facebook page, along with a podcast of our discussion today.
That's great. The Red Cross is the best organization to put your donations for this cause. And what's important for people to remember is long after the news cameras are gone, and this is a rescue mission right now, is the recovery. Those victims down there will be recovering for months and years, and that'll be our chance to go ahead and assist them. And we'll reach out as a community to see what we can do, but individuals always can do so much more.
Even if you feel like, oh gosh, there's nothing I can do, if you got a few dollars, you can make a difference. All of us can get involved. And I was also mentioning to Rachel a moment ago that I'm involved on the board of directors for a local animal charity for the Poppy Foundation. And we've been seeing a lot too about issues with pets. So I will make sure that on that Talking Solutions Facebook page that we also have information. I don't intend to choose one over the other. I'm going to help the Red Cross, and I'm also going to find a few dollars to help the animals.
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you from experience down in New Orleans, there were just so many animals that we went ahead and we rescued from there. And animals bring up 2 separate problems. One is that people leave them and then we have to try to care and deal with the animals. The other part is that people won't leave them and they'll stay there to their own demise. So depending on the attachment with the animals and the plan that people have, it's 2 different issues that we can have with animals. animals, but we always try to care for the animals the best we can.
Very true. And Chief Steinbeck, the mention about how people sometimes will stay behind with their animals to their own detriment, we find that in working with domestic violence issues here in Southern Nevada, where until they had Noah's Animal House at the Shade Tree, a lot of the victims of domestic violence would stay behind with their abusers because they could not bear to leave their animals. So we will see what we can do to help all of them. Emergency Preparedness Month, the month of September. When you see the news stories, this endless coverage on Harvey, it does make us think, how do we protect our families? Because it's heartbreaking to see what's happening to these people who last weekend were just living life in their homes. And suddenly their vehicles are submerged up to the steering wheel inside their garage. Their homes are flooded up to their waist. My husband said over the weekend, if something like that happened to us, would we even have a safe, dry place to sleep? You don't think about those things until you're right in the middle of the circumstance. I think that's one of the reasons why Emergency Preparedness Month is so important. An event like a Harvey is very unlikely given our desert surroundings, how things are here in Southern Nevada. Nonetheless, preparing in advance to protect our families is a concern. What do you consider to be more likely people will encounter?
Don't have the false security that we can't have a catastrophic event here in Nevada. We're the third most seismically active state in the country. We definitely could have a large-scale earthquake that could be just as devastating for us. We do have quite a bit of flooding here, and while it's not community-wide, it's localized, but it is devastating when it happens. I've always said that when you have an emergency and you look at it at the scale of Harvey or Katrina or any of the large-scale news media-worthy events, those type of emergencies happen every day to individuals, individual families. They're just on a smaller scale, and you don't realize it. But the worst emergency, the worst disaster is the one that happens to you. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to prepare just the same way as we want them to. And there's nothing better than personal preparedness. We're preparing hard as a community. We have plans in place to shelter people, to evacuate people, to provide security for people, to provide some of the basic living necessities, but we can easily get overwhelmed as a government. You have to do personal preparedness. The quicker that a community rebounds is always based on how prepared the individuals are. That's why we push so hard in September for Preparedness Month. We really want people to take that time, and we'll get into more details, but to take a look at what their food storage is, what their medical needs are, what their evacuation plans are if they have to leave their home, their neighborhood, or their entire community and city, because we are not immune to that. There could be a hazardous materials incident that could cause us to have to evacuate a large portion of the valley. There could be an attack. A number of things could occur. Even the flooding that was in 2014 completely cut off the Moapa Valley. So the people in the Moapa Valley were not getting supplies, and we had very similar issues that we have currently in Harvey, just on a much smaller scale.
Especially during monsoon season, those storms that come through so intense that they take out a chunk of I-15,
Yes.
More regionalized, but still very intense flooding. Something that does occur frequently here in Southern Nevada is the prospect of a fire that can impact your family. We should all have smoke detectors available through the Red Cross that they especially promote during the month of September for Emergency Preparedness Month. But to have your house in order, to have those protections in place, if we needed to flee our homes, do we have what we can grab and run? Because a lot of times people end up saying, I didn't have time to get anything. Would it be prudent for us to know where those critical, important items are in case we need to run?
Yes, absolutely. You want to have a kit that will sustain you for 72 hours that you can leave with clothes, medicine, and you can, of course, utilize it if you had to shelter in place within your home. You want a bag that you can go ahead and grab that has your food, your medicine, water, clothing, any important documents that you absolutely have to have. FEMA.org has great lists. Brought copies here for you and your staff. They have great lists that you can check off to make sure that you're completely prepared for that. The one thing I want to make clear is if there's a fire in your home, don't grab anything but your loved ones and get out. We don't want you to look for your kid or your important documents or anything like that. We want you to get out of the house and have a meeting place outside of your home where you can give accountability and tell the fire department exactly who's there or who's missing.
That's a good thing to consider, that we do need to have a family family evacuation plan where we have an agreed upon meeting place where we've already discussed if this were to happen. Of course, we don't want it to happen, but if it did, we would have that covered.
Yeah, my family, we have a meeting place outside of our home, we have a meeting place outside of our neighborhood, and we have a meeting place outside of our city. And I would suggest for people to have the same thing.
And that's not hard.
It's not hard, but you have to do it. You have to remind each other what's happening. And obviously, the place that'd be out of the city is probably a relative of some sort that you can at least both contact if you didn't have cell phone coverage, which happens all the time. We're so used to being able to communicate with everybody. When that gets cut off, we really don't know how to react like maybe we used to know how to 20 to 30 years ago a little bit better. But have that backup plan. Have somebody else in the family that you are going to contact or you are going to meet if you get separated. I can tell you from going to these major disasters, there's nothing worse than not knowing where your family is.
We're seeing this right now in Harvey, too, where cell service has gone down in some of the several areas. Part of that family reunification plan is so important with that out-of-state relative that you can all contact so that everybody knows where they can meet back up with the team once everybody's separated.
Rachel, that's so true. And I think what we're also seeing with the ongoing coverage of the events surrounding Harvey is that people who did have their cell phones, who are isolated and need to be evacuated or get out somehow, those cell phones lose their power. And if you don't have power in your house to recharge your devices, you only have so much time to reach out using them.
Absolutely. Part of those 72-hour kits and that family reunification plan includes that phone number that all the family members should have for an out-of-state relative or loved one, of which they can check in with once they've made it to safe ground.
The most important thing of all is protecting our families, the lives of the people that you love, and the animals that might also be part of your household are more important than anything else. And Emergency Preparedness Month during September actually extends beyond our family and our house. We've got a bigger picture also to look at. We've got Chief Steinbeck with Clark County Fire and Rachel Skidmore, the emergency manager with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. We're talking about emergency preparedness. I've been working with Stacy Welling with the county because it also is the safety of our community. And we had done some public service announcements talking about the importance of the See Something, Say Something campaign. And Rachel, that's something you're involved with?
Absolutely. The See Something, Say Something campaign is part of what we call the National SAR Initiative, the Suspicious Activity Reporting Initiative. The order for all fusion centers is that we are going to implement that National SAR Initiative. And what that involves is that we gather, collect, analyze, and then disseminate suspicious activity reporting. And for us to be successful as a fusion center, we can't recognize success without the community. It's so important as the eyes and ears out there. If we're seeing things, if we're being exposed to things, we hear things that just don't look or feel right, it's so important to call that in. Unfortunately, post 9/11, the 9/11 Commission identified several information gaps, and that's how fusion centers came to rise as information sharing centers and clearinghouses, so that we have all of our partner agencies in one location. The importance of having all the different partner agencies is so that we can access all the disparate data sets and ensure that we're not missing anything, that we have all the different pieces of the picture, so that as we have this information come in, trends that are happening, things that are nationwide or just with our neighbors in the region, it's important that we have all of the pieces to the picture so that we can accurately push that back out to the parties that be to make sure that we are the safest community in America.
Well, I think you were correct in saying, Rachel, that when we have a big event like a 9/11, that's where we see the gaps in communication. Chief Steinbeck, you would know about this too, I would imagine. That's where we find out that the different groups, fire, police, different organizations, weren't communicating on systems that were symbiotic. Do you know what I mean?
We absolutely do. The interoperability issue with communications and also just agency communications back and forth. That's improved a lot. Communications continues to be one of the biggest challenges during an incident, but it really brought up the rise of emergency management. 9/11 did. Emergency management was in place before that, but that umbrella unit to bring everybody together to communicate. When we have an event here in the Valley that is significant, We bring everybody to one location. We have all the agency representation there, and we're able to go ahead and communicate almost always face-to-face to our representatives for those agencies and make sure that we have a common operating picture. We've also worked a lot on the interoperability with radios and making sure that we can have, for instance, police and fire now can speak on the same channels when necessary. But any incident that we have, communications is always a challenge, and any incident that you see that went wrong, you'll always point to communications as the number one issue.
It's funny, I'm in a communications business, and I always laugh when we get something wrong because I say, well, we're in a communications business, and obviously we're not really great at communicating. I guess what I really mean is we can always do it better.
Absolutely. Terry, that's one of the things that Chief and I work so hard throughout the year, not just, of course, in the month of September. We will get together on several occasions and test all of our alternate communication methods, as well as, of course, our primary, where we have all of the different public safety representatives around our region, so that during the event or an actual response that's required, this is not the first time that we are making sure that we have interoperability.
Sometimes we do hear about that on the news, where they are having an emergency management drill where they're going to have a bunch of people who look like they're victims, but they're really not, but we're going to get all the groups out here and practice and make sure that everything is functioning properly.
Absolutely. And like Rachel said, we test that equipment and we make sure it's working, and then we have redundant systems. If this doesn't work, let's switch to that. We have different ways that we can go ahead and communicate. If our cell phones go down, if our radios go down, we have alternate forms of communication that we can go ahead that maybe won't be as robust, but will still provide us that critical communication that we need to go ahead and get through to everybody. Also, while we're on the topic of communication, public information and warning is a huge aspect of what Rachel and I both do. And we're able to push out emergency messages to everybody through different means. We can push them out through the emergency alert system.
I'm well familiar with EAS.
You're very well.
Cell phone goes off.
Yeah, so we can push those out. And now everybody with smartphones, we push out wireless emergency alerts. We can go ahead and make notifications in designated geographical areas. And so it's really allowed us to get that information better, pushed out to the public, and get the information that we need to them. But we also have an app now that's available to everybody. Find the link at Clark County's website. It's a community preparedness app. That app will not only help you with what you need to do for your family for preparedness, but it also is an app that we can push out messages to you during times of emergency. We'll give you evacuation routes, give you sheltering locations. It's a very impressive app that we have now available to everybody.
That sounds like the kind of app we could all use. I'll make sure that I have the links on the Talking Solutions Facebook page. A lot of information is going to be available, especially during the month of September, Emergency Preparedness Month. And when we talk about see something, say something, I think back in the day, it was Mrs. Kravitz on the old Bewitched series, and she was the nosy neighbor. To a certain extent, there's a reason why the nosy neighbor might come in handy. I don't want to be over the top on that, but I do want to pay attention to the people who live in my neighborhood, because that too would qualify for see something, say something. We do this a lot in my neighborhood. Suspicious vehicles, we all take turns finding out, making sure it's all good. Maybe check on the well-being of that elderly neighbor if I haven't seen them for a good long time. And a lot of us now have those Ring doorbells. We can link in the metro if there is an incident in our neighborhood and they need to know if anybody's seen something. That video from our home security system can be part of a network.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the Fusion Watch program that was put together, and individuals that have video surveillance systems are able to go online and register those with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. So in the event that an incident takes place on your street, this is a tool available to law enforcement that they would know they would be able to come back out to your location and hopefully gather some of that footage and help solve the case.
My next door neighbor, in fact, a few months back, had a quick break-in. It wasn't anything huge, but when I came home a short while later, I did have a Metro officer who was on the street. He approached me in my driveway and said, "Did you or your husband see anything?" He was walking the neighborhood to see if there was any other video surveillance that might help them find out who had perpetrated this.
Absolutely. Our officers work so hard every day to keep us safe, and that's what's so important is information, whether it be on the preparedness side, whether it be on the see something, say something side, whether it be just on regular vigilance, so that we're making sure that we have our eyes and ears open in our communities. That will only help better us as a community.
Rachel, this fusion center that you had mentioned, would the fusion center be something that you would activate on a New Year's Eve, for instance?
The fusion center is always active and operating. The nice thing about our fusion center, the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center, is 24/7. It's operating around the clock. So when these calls do come in to the suspicious activity reporting line, they're being answered and they're being deployed immediately to detectives, regardless of day or time, depending upon the severity of what information is being reported. Chief and I do work very closely as well, standing up our emergency response teams, including the MAC, which Chief can talk a little bit more about. But our Department Operations Center is something that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department would stand up during time of emergency. But that fusion center is always on, always operating, and always looking to deter events taking place in our town.
Yes, we have one of the best fusion centers in the country, if not the very best in the country. It's very impressive. What Rachel referred to as the MAC, Multi-Agency Coordination Center, that's something that I run. We stay in communication with the fusion center completely, but that we stand up during times of either something that we're concerned enough about to go ahead and stand up in preparation for, or something that we stand up in response to an event that's happened. And that's where we get all of the agency representatives in there from the various cities, the various emergency departments, even our partners. We utilize so many different partners, public, private, nonprofit. We want to have them all at one location. That's the way we've really improved some of our communication and interoperability.
Emergency Preparedness Month covers so many different categories, from protecting our homes, making sure that we're set for what hopefully will never happen, to make sure our families are protected as best as possible, to helping us as citizens protect our neighborhoods, our community, the See Something, Say Something campaign with Metro, all of this, to even talking about what we were discussing in the beginning, how we as individuals can also reach across to Texas, Louisiana, and help our neighbors come through the Harvey disaster as well.
No, absolutely. It's always going to be neighbors helping neighbors. No matter what we do to prepare as government agencies, we can never beat the neighbors and some of the great nonprofit organizations that provide aid. They can be very quick to act and are very effective. We depend on them as well. We have, for instance, community emergency response teams. Those have been set up throughout the valley. Those are just citizens that want to be a little bit better trained and are ready to go ahead and assist in times of emergency and to know how to assist their neighbors and really have a better understanding of how to prepare for their own families as well. But we try to do everything we can for preparation, but I want to stress nothing beats individual preparation. I've been to several disasters throughout this country, some where people did not prepare very well and they really, really struggle. I had the opportunity to go to a rural area in Colorado where they were very self-reliant and they had taken preparation very seriously and they were completely cut off. Nothing was coming in. There were no services, no power, nothing. The roads, they were gone. They weren't going to be back for months. So we hiked back into this area and reached these people, and these people were so well prepared. Some of the supplies we brought in, they said, no, please check with my neighbors because I'm doing fine. Now that's an extreme, but it's just amazing how some people can go ahead and prepare for some of the hardest type of situations.
Just takes some planning.
It takes some planning, yeah, and we're giving out that information today, but you have to act. I mean, this is really one of those things where everybody says, I'll do it tomorrow because today I've got all these appointments. The kids have their things tonight. Got to get them ready for school, and then it's exhausting. I'll do it next week. But if you don't do it today, then you're probably not going to do it. So please, when you get this information, act on it.
Well, and being that it is a holiday weekend, maybe we have an extra day. We could take a little time, set up things as far as our emergency preparedness for our family.
It doesn't take long, and we really try to do a lot of outreach to the schools too, because it's amazing how the kids can motivate parents to go ahead and take care of this. And if you make it a family activity, you'll get it done.
I think it's important too to stress that you don't need to prepare everything today. If you take this in little bites and just determine that we're going to get a little bit closer, on ready.gov or some of the other resources they have available, it lists what you need to have in your 72-hour kits. It lists what you need to do for your evacuation and family reunification action plans. So if you bite things off in little bits and continue to just keep stepping forward, you'll be prepared today so that you can better help your community recover.
That makes so much sense, Rachel. With the family this weekend, come up with that information about alternate meeting sites and the phone numbers that we all should have. And then the next trip to the store, get some of the items that we want to put into our 72-hour kit. You don't have to do everything at once.
That's right. Great point. And that's probably the most realistic way that it'll go ahead and get done and the best way to get it done.
As part of Talking Solutions, we always ask, during Emergency Preparedness Month, what can we do to help you?
Well, first of all, take care of yourself and your family, of course, and then just check on people and say, hey, have you done this? Do you have a plan? Don't be afraid to be a little bit pushy on your family and your friends and make sure that they've got a plan. Another great thing to do, if you have the means, is maybe sponsor somebody that doesn't. We really try to reach out because it's easy for some people to say, hey, have 3 or 10 days of food, but if you don't know where your next meal is coming from, it's hard for you to think about where 3 days or 10 days worth of meals coming from. So if you can help those nonprofit agencies, the Red Cross being a great one, but certainly we have many throughout the valley. Three Squares, another excellent partner. If you can help them out or directly help a family in need and provide them with a 72-hour kit or even just some canned goods or something along those lines, some type of preparation, that goes a long way because they're our most vulnerable within the valley during times of emergencies. And then the other thing, if you're able to go ahead and assist with those donations to those great organizations, I can tell you that they really do put it to the right place. They do some great work that nobody else can really do.
Well said, Chief Steinbeck. Rachel Skidmore, Emergency Manager with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. Same question. What can we do to help you?
I think I would just stress more than anything that our community partners, we ask that they remain ever vigilant. It's so important as the eyes and ears out there that as they're seeing things that are taking place that just don't feel quite right, that they're reporting this. As the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center, we'd rather come out on 1,000 nothings than miss the one something. It's never something too little to call if you feel like something is just not sitting quite right.
Have I forgotten anything?
We talked about individual preparedness. The other thing I want to stress is business preparedness, because the next thing that shows how a community goes ahead and rebounds back from a catastrophic event is how fast people can get back to work and get the services that they need. So if you're a business owner or a manager, think about how your business is going to go ahead and respond. Even if you just had a fire in your individual business, what is your plan to go ahead and bring that back? Do you have an alternate location? Do you have the ways to come back up and get back to work? Put that plan together. Also train your employees on it as well. Take time to do that. We offer assistance at Clark County Emergency Management to some degree, but again, you have to be able to put in the work for that. But we want to make sure that our businesses can get their people back to work and provide the services back to the community.
Businesses also have emergency situations that can bring them down to their knees.
Yeah, and if it's one, then really you're working for yourself and your employees, which, like I said, the worst disaster is the one that happens to you. But if it's a large-scale emergency, then it can affect the entire community. And how we've planned for that and to get those businesses back open is probably one of the top priorities after we take care of the rescue component.
Good to know.
It's important to stress that emergencies don't occur when we're sitting at home on a Tuesday evening with our family all gathered around us. We're all over the place all the time, out and about, and I think that's what Chief Steinbeck was stressing. Preparedness in the vehicles, preparedness in the business, having a 72-hour kit in your car. These things usually occur while we're out and about. The majority of the day is not spent in our home, unfortunately. And so that's why, again, we stress family reunification. If we have our children at schools or our loved ones at other businesses across the valley, it's so important that we have those plans in place.
And those plans in place will make it less essential for us to have that cell phone that's always at our side, because it might not be when you get into a situation where you're in need.
The more prepared we are as an individual and a family, the better situated we are to help our community recover. That's most likely what we'd want to stress today, is that individual preparedness is key so that we can help our community recover.
And as we are currently in the first weekend of September, and it is Emergency Preparedness Month, there's just a lot of things that we should take into consideration, because there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle that will help us be truly prepared as individuals, families, families and a community.
Absolutely.
And just one last reminder, if you would like to donate to the Red Cross efforts in the aftermath of Harvey, text Harvey to 90999. It's going to generate a $10 charge to your cell phone bill. You will see it listed as redcross.org. That's Harvey to 90999. I've also put some links for animal charities. Groups are rescuing thousands of pets down there, including the Houston SPCA, Austin Pets Alive, Best Friends Animal Society is also down there. All the links are on our Talking Solutions Facebook page, along with a podcast of our discussion today. Chief John Steinbeck with Clark County Fire, and also Rachel Skidmore, Emergency Manager with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
you,
you
Terry.
both
Appreciate it.
for coming to join us today on Talking Solutions. Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.